Remember if, during the time where you were getting bused to Madison Park High, if you made any friends with any of the black kids, or were you really, separated with the white kids?
I did, and we both got shit for it, actually.
Can you tell me a little bit about that relationship?
His name was Ronnie, and we just kind of hit it off. He was a good dude, and we skipped school one day, and we went somewhere, I don't remember what we did, and we went down the combat zone, or whatever we did. Playing pinball down the combat zone, which was a whole other historical place. And we both got back to school. He got a lot of shit from the black kids about hanging out with me, and I got a lot of shit from my friends still. I actually did not cave into the pressure, but eventually he did.
Do you feel like
our friendship sort of kind of ended?
Do you feel like as time went on it was maybe easier to make relationships with the black students, or did it just kind of stay as divided as when it started?
As time went on, maybe it did make it a little easier. In some ways.
Okay. Do you think that busing caused more students to drop out of high school during the 70s?
Undoubtedly.
Did you know anyone who dropped out of high school because of busing?
Probably half a dozen people.
Okay. So do you remember what steps President Ford took to stop forced busing? Because he was really opposed to busing. Do you remember anything that he did to try to...
No, I don't. Okay. I was only 14 years old, so I was not really like 18 or 19.
Do you believe Garrity's decision to force busing was justified?
Well, no.
Why?
Because sometimes you got to look at the whole thing. And the whole thing is that choice, because now, of course, forced busing has been removed in Boston. And choice works. So I do believe that somehow, instead of trying to pour everybody into the same box, I do believe that everybody should have the right. So in other words, if the black parents wanted to send their kids to Don Bosco or to Brighton High School, they certainly should have it should have been ensured that they had the right to do that. And if the white people wanted to send their kids to Madison Park High or to Forest Hills, it should have been ensured that they were able to do that. I would go along with that everybody has the right to send their kids to whatever school, and that right should have been protected by the judge, not forced.
So Boston was one of the first places to attempt integration through busing, and a lot of other places in the country was really successful, but in Boston it was, pretty much a failure, as you may have remembered. So do you think that there's any reason why it was maybe more successful in other places as opposed to in Boston?
Well, again, going back to, Boston has always probably been much more racially divided than a lot of people. A lot of places. Even as a young child, the kids from the North End, they didn't come in our neighborhood. And if they did, it was a problem. And we didn't go in theirs, really, because if we did, it was a problem. And we were both white. I can remember kids from other neighborhoods giving me shit about dating girls in their neighborhood. White kids. So Boston's always been this territorial. Brighton and Allston, Hyde Park, Roslindale, all these.
Not even necessarily
sections.
racially, just
Yeah, I mean,
separated.
well, a lot of it is racial, but they have been very, very sectarian, and sectioned off. And I think that that's probably why it was less successful.
I think that going back to the whole fierce pride of your neighborhoods or whatever. Do you think that maybe the parents who oppose busing should maybe not be seen as much as racist as they're portrayed because of the the fierce pride that they had for their neighborhood? Because I read a lot about this subject, and a lot of people said that maybe these people shouldn't be seen as racist because they were just protecting their neighborhoods, and I think a lot of people believe that.
Well, there's a whole thing, a cultural thing, even still today, I have cultural things kind of ingrained in me that some people think, what? Like, it just, I grew up, you know, a certain way. So some of these people, this cultural thing, it may have been more of what you're talking about, of protecting their neighborhood or a cultural thing that they've been ingrained in. But I think a lot of them were racist. I don't, and I don't necessarily, but I think that it's because they were more vocal. Because I was on the bus going into the black neighborhoods, the black parents didn't want us there either. It just wasn't making the news cameras. They were just, it was just as, they didn't want us there either.
So why do you think Judge Garrity receives, you know, looking back, like, in retrospect in history? Forced it. But there was no, like, you know, support from other people, like this was really all his idea?
No, I think he's the person who enacted it and forced busing to come. That's why they call it forced. He's the one who, you know, court ordered. Mm-hmm. And, you know, from people in my neighborhood, we used this, you know, the cry to Garrity, the reason why Garrity was so villainized was because he was the person who actually did it. Could have been somebody else, but, and there was all this talk about, you know, oh, that fuck, he lives in Wellesley, or he sends his kids to school in Wellesley. You can't erase that?
No.
I'll erase it.
Okay, so what role did Louisa Day Hicks play in ending busing? And please try to watch your language.
Okay. I don't think she had any role in ending busing, really. I mean, she was
opposed to it.
Opposed to it. And the politician, one of the faces of the politician, her and William Bulger, but and a good politician, actually, meaning a good neighbor, because she represented her neighborhood well and with pride. So I think she's a little villainized. And I don't know that she had anything to do with ending forced busing. I think the, you know, from what I can tell, is moreover, it didn't work, so they finally let it go. I think that they realized that it's not really the best thing for the kids. I mean, in the end, you know, as an adult, I was a child getting on the school bus. I was just a child with hair about like yours, long hair like yours. But in the end, what I didn't realize then is this is supposed to be about the children. This is about 6 and 7 and 8-year-old children that need to get an education, need to learn their ABCs. And I think that regardless of race, religion, creed, that's what the whole idea is for public education.
And you think the busing kind of took away from the actual education and put more of a focus on the whole race factor?
Yeah, and I think that there was, when I was in there, and I don't know about later years because I wasn't in there, but you know, when I was in there, we were going to school through metal detectors and cops in the hallways, and riot gear and riot cops. So that, you know, for a 14-year-old kid, that's pretty scary. And again, there was a lot of fist fights, a lot of stabbings, a lot of violence.
How long did busing last?
For me, 2 years.
Well, for you, do you know when it ended in Boston?
I think it ended about 5 or 6 years ago, actually.
That's a pretty long time for an idea that's been so opposed by pretty much everybody.
Yeah, you know, I think though that what this interview pertains to is more the beginning of busing, because I was there for the birth of it, right? And I think that it was a good idea in theory, and I think that the people who probably did, now as an adult again, not as a child, you know, the people that did it probably did it
with the right intentions.
With the right intentions because everybody should have an education. and everybody should be, everybody should be able to get an education.
Absolutely.
And he's one of them.
But yeah. But maybe the actual execution of the idea was kind of where I went wrong. So, do you have any other comments about busing? Anything you'd like to
No, I think